I'm the only white face in this area. You don't belong here. Stop, I'll shoot you in the back.
Yo, what is up, guys? I have a special Locked Up with Copville episode of Breakdowns where I'm going to have, as you see, my most famous guest so far, Lance Fisher, back to kind of get an update on how things have gone since he came out and exposed the Palm Bay Police Department for all the nonsense that he went through. I know he's still in a legal battle and he's still going to the council meetings, trying to get done right or get some more awareness to what happened to him. But Lance, thanks for coming back, man.
I appreciate that. That intro is always very uplifting.
You know it. It's low rent. I put it together myself, but I think it fits what I'm about. Like, I'm not fancy. I'm not trying to be anything cool. I just want to get to the point. And just about every one of those clips has some real police work going on in it. So I actually like it. And I don't like many things I do, but that one I kind of like. But give us an update now of what has happened since kind of like what happened once you came on, and how has the feedback been?
I'll tell you, this podcast, especially in this area, and has had great feedback. I think, I don't know, it's over 2,300 views if I remember right today, but it's crazy because now it's getting posted in all kinds of forums that I'm not even putting them in. I'm watching people post the forums because, quite honestly, the citizens here are just getting they're getting fed up with the local politics, and it's almost like they've rallied around a little bit of me. Not that was ever my intention.
No,
my goal is simply to tell my story.
It should be your intentions, because part of what I've done here is your story was my main reason for what I was starting. Every cop's got a podcast. They sit around and talk about what was your coolest call, all that. Like, I get it. It's cool. It's stories, but I think that's kind of played out. And what I wanted to do was bring this other side of law enforcement. Everybody thinks we're all excited, happy, and the building's great, and we're just running around putting bad guys in jail. I don't think the public understands the gravity of the building, the administrations, and how quickly you can come in and out of favors. And that's why I did this. And you happen to be, I think that's why it's the most popular episode, is because people are getting to see that type of mentality. So what happened once you went on? What was the word on the street? Are you looking to boost your energy, focus, and overall well-being? Emerald Medical's hormone replacement therapy program is designed for people who want real results. Their expert team personalizes your treatment to optimize performance and restore balance, whether you're battling fatigue or you just want to feel like yourself again. Prices start at just $160 a month, and podcast listeners get 5% off with code Copville. Veterans and first responders also receive exclusive discounts. Visit emeraldhrt.com to get started.
Well, the word on the street initially was that the Palm administration was a little pissed. They didn't like the fact that I aired a lot of the grievances out. But I've been using platforms since day one, and this was probably the biggest platform. And I kind of gave them a heads up that I thought that this was going to be a game changer, because this was instead of telling my story 3 minutes at a time, I got to tell it for, I don't know what I talked for, 6 hours and 47 minutes or whatever it was that you and I spoke. But I think once that came out, regular people that saw it were like, wait a minute, this just doesn't sound right. This doesn't sound right, because I put pieces of it up, and and when I do that, I do it in PowerPoint so that people can see what I say is legitimate. And and then now you have officers that are wondering, man, this dude put 21 years into this agency, and man, if I'm only 5, 6, 7 years in, what's happening to me? And then since then, we've had recent promotions, and the same people that got overlooked before were overlooked again. They promoted the guy, and I think I told you about the guy who sent the message to me, "Fuck you," and then berated my wife on social media. They went and promoted him because he's a loyalist. So I think now even the officers are starting to understand that they're concerned as well, that a lot of what I say is true, because, like I said, I was a cop's cop while I was there. They trusted in me, and they came in and out of my office. And I think this podcast really opened their eyes up. And quite honestly, I think it's opened the eyes up from a lot of people all over the country. I had a guy that I went to the academy with in 2000 somehow in New York, he saw the podcast and reached out to me.
Good.
Man, Lance was a great guy, man, and I don't understand this. So, and then you have a couple of haters, and I can explain those comments, but it's not even worth the time.
No, and I found that as well. Like I have people that talk shit about me, and this is a rare chance, and I think that like why I like this podcast now is this is the opportunity for us to come back at those negative comments or those negative things that people lay. Because what they did to me was they just authored a document about me and then started showing everybody in the office. I don't get a chop, 300-400 employees. I don't get an opportunity to go to each employee and explain that document to everybody or say this is what happened. Kind of like you get ran out of there, and they tell their story about what happened to you, and you're gone. Like, and then 3 minutes at a time at a council meeting does nothing. And what I've noticed is when we get screwed so bad and we're so messed up from it, and the PTSD and the mental health issue that causes, we're usually not rationally explaining it when we get a chance. I did it today. I went into Publix today and I ran into a guy that I hadn't seen since it's been about a year, and I tried to like fit like all the stuff that happened to me on the way out the door last September to him in like 3 minutes, like you, and you just can't get it out. You're just like, you get overly excited. So that's why I like this, where we can slow down, take our time, and then you get an opportunity to rebut all that nonsense that they're filling those brains with in the building about what a bad guy you are and he's not a team player. He's this, he's that. Oh, he's a terror. That's all they do. They just smear campaign you, and nobody has the balls to ask any questions or even clap back to the administration. They're not going to be like, no, Lance was a good dude. No, they're not going to fucking say that. They're going to just walk away from it. So this is why we're here, and this is why we do what we do. So I have a PowerPoint. Do you want me to bring that up? You can kind of walk us through it.
If you give me a couple more minutes, then I think we can get to that.
Yeah, whatever you got, man. Talk to me.
What that's going to highlight is kind of some of the things that I've highlighted that have been brushed aside, which that still amazes me. But so with the PowerPoint, though, or with the last podcast, it's crazy because I didn't realize how many people that the Palm Bay Police Department did wrong. And I didn't realize that until people started calling me up. People started sharing their stories with me. People that haven't been with the agency for 10, 6, 5 years, they called me up and said, man, your story is my story. And it's crazy because I was in the agency and I wasn't at the level that I was at, but it is crazy how these people come back and talk about what happened to them and how they got ran out. And some of them landed on their feet and some of them never did. And it's just crazy that when you talk about a culture is a long period of time within an agency. It's not created over a short period of time. So when you're talking, I have 10 officers that were there 10 years ago, that tells you how long that culture has been created. But I'm telling you, it's been exponentially created over the last 2 years. Mario Agella has put a stamp on that culture. He has absolutely demanded loyalty. And if anybody goes against that loyalty, man, he will stomp them. He said those words, I will do anything for friends and family. And a part of my PowerPoint, we'll talk about a little bit of that. But that's what's scary, is that there's not one story in any agency. There are multiple stories. It's just who comes forward. And then when somebody does come forward.
Yeah. And I'm getting ready. Vero Beach Police Department has almost the identical thing going on as Palm Bay. The only thing different is Vero actually did I got it. I have two of them. They did a union officer survey, and the comments and the statistics are mind-boggling. And I'm closer to them 3 years ago, but it sounds identical. You have a chief at Vero and a deputy chief that have a die or get on board or die attitude. And you got a lieutenant that's suing the agency big time. You have multiple surveys that people don't trust the administration. During the hurricane, they had no high water vehicles. They had no way to respond to calls. Just over and over. And I worked there, so I saw it, like you're saying, I saw it 23 years ago, where they never improved or they never adapted as things changed. They just kept that it's always going to be this way we've always have done it, and then they just pass that leadership on to the next new boy. When you get to a point where you got officers just leaving left and right, writing memos saying, hey, I'm not safe. You swore me in. You said you were going to protect me and my family. Nothing you train, nothing you do, none of your technology, nothing protects us. And it's wild, man. And these little, and I would compare Palm Bay to Vero when you consider the size of Brevard, like the sheriff's office, and then you have Palm Bay kind of tucked in there. And then there you are, decent sized agency, stuff's going on. Everybody thinks it's great. Citizens are there, and you got cops terrified to come to work. You got cops terrified to cross the administration. They don't know if they're going to be fired, put in an IA, and it's a wild, wild world out there. And I have received hundreds of stories, and if I did a podcast on that, I'd do one a day.
Is anybody? I mean, I assume they're run by a council or a mayor.
Oh, it's all the same.
Do they don't care either, right?
No, nobody cares. So the Vero case is like they went to people have gone to the city council and the there's what's his name? There's a city manager runs the whole place. He hires and fires they've made complaints and they've had their complaints leaked back to the department. You have a guy go over there and say, hey, the chief is doing this. 2 minutes later, he's like in trouble for telling the city manager what you can't. You can't complain. They've created an environment that if you complain, you're either a piece of shit, you're anti agency, you're disgruntled, and then they scare tactic everybody into. That's what they did with my IA. They showed my video to everybody, and anybody who didn't agree with it was immediately might as well just been there with me. Like if you didn't agree that it was so bad, you were a piece of shit. And they just yeah, that's exactly. And guys were like, like it's pretty simple with those cases. If everybody comes to you and goes, dude, you fucked up, then I fucked up. Then I'm like, yep, I deserved it. When everybody comes to you and says, I've done worse, I've seen the administration do worse, or that's really not, I don't understand what they came after you for. That's when you go, okay, so I'm not crazy, and I always admit I could have done better things. I could have done different things, but did not deserve to be demoted. But that's another story. We're going to keep on task with yours. So good feedback, people reaching out, positive. I'm glad that's what we wanted to do. And I'm glad it's helping you. And I'm sure it's helping your family and helping your home life and your mental health to think you're not so fucking crazy after all. And you're actually got guys that know what you're going through.
Well, so the biggest thing that happened is last council Thursday, they actually drew up a 27-page resolution to silence me, quite honestly. And those aren't my words. That's what everybody else. I started getting phone calls on Saturday, be like, look what they're doing, dude. So basically now they won't live broadcast public comments anymore, so nobody can see what I have to say. I do presentations. Now I got to submit those 2 days in advance, which gives everybody in the world an opportunity to look at them. Now they can force people to stop talking if their topics are irrelevant. Which I
First Amendment. Where's the First Amendment? Where's the First Amendment at?
I can only sit now at criticizing council and Chief Agello is going to be irrelevant conversations, right? And they talk about how law enforcement can get involved now, and I warn those officers. This is a very vague resolution. You make arrests on your own discretion, and the Supreme Court said you make a bad arrest, you're liable for it. So
yes, you're not protected.
So that's gonna come down to an opinion that I'm going to make at the podium one day when they decide. And I believe that they've killed the live stream of that public comments in anticipation of arresting somebody at that podium, and they don't.
So they're not streaming it live anymore.
Not the public comment. As soon as public comments are over, then they'll live stream it again.
So while the public's up talking, they stop live streaming.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
What the fuck, man?
Because of possible FCC violations. Because I can't cuss during the rest of I can't say fuck you from the back of the room all day long.
Yeah, of course you can.
Right. So it's crazy.
All they gotta do there is go on a delay like every other fucking network does. You go on a 10-second delay, and if somebody does something, you hit the button.
You know what's ironic? All of it was delayed Thursday. It was all about a 15-second delay to the point where they didn't even show my PowerPoint. They literally just showed the very end of it. So when people saw my PowerPoint, and people were pissed, like, where's this PowerPoint? Because they would show it as I spoke on the stream. And all they did was show the very end. They just put the end block up and they just left it there. It was insane. But,
so they're suppressing the First Amendment.
What are you going to do, man? I mean,
they are.
Florida and do whatever the hell they want.
No,
right? They votes.
They can't, though. That's the problem. They can't.
They got the votes, so they can do whatever the hell they want. And it's crazy that, and I even told them, I said, you're trying to change policy to suppress one person to protect one person. There are 140,000 citizens in Palm Bay, and you're trying to suppress one person to protect one person. And I don't get it, man. And
that's government overstepping. That's overstepping their power.
And my gut says that when this all comes down, and there's no doubt, I had great conversations in Tallahassee. I don't even know if I told you. I went to Tallahassee on Friday. I met with all kinds of offices up there, and I had good conversations. And my guess is when those entities come down, I don't know how council is going to be able to be like, oh, we didn't know. I don't know how they're going to be able to say, oh, we weren't aware this was going on. And that's why I do it in public. I do it in public for two reasons: to protect my safety, right, and so that they can't deny it. But we do have a new city manager that just stepped in this week. Literally, Thursday was his first day at council, and so he came on a platform about accountability and stuff like that. And I can only hope that he holds to his agreement, because I can't fathom the things that this chief does, and not one person is worried about it. I remember when the chief of Tampa was on a golf cart and showed her ID, and they said, "Oh, that was abuse of power," and then boom, she was gone. Kissimmy's been reached out.
Did you see me cook Tampa PD's assistant chief? The assistant chief of Tampa PD posted a picture with her magazine pouches upside down in a Class A, and I highlighted it, posted it, and they went in and deleted that one slide out of the next day. They went in and deleted the one slide, but it was too late because I already had it screenshotted on my page, and I made a comment about them deleting it. It's got like 1,000 likes on the Tampa PD page, and it was pretty funny. They're a little bit of a mess over there as well. Tampa is not doing well with their stuff, but so new city manager. We're hoping maybe he comes in. What's that? New city manager.
I was say that just goes back to. Sorry.
Go ahead. We're on a little delay.
We talked about when anybody gets promoted, right? You have an education, you get promoted. You're never really a cop. Yeah, I mean, when your mag house is upside down, that's a problem, man.
And she's a DEI. She's a big pusher of DEI. So she authored an email when the assassination of Trump happened, and that female Secret Service agent was catching hell that didn't do shit. The female, she posted. Yep. I guess she sent a department-wide email basically defending DEI and saying, "Oh, they're attacking females," and it didn't go over well. And they're a mess. I got guys from Tampa PD message me all the time that it's everywhere. It's a problem everywhere. We have to do something. There's so many things that are wrong, and this is just one of them. I think there's some other. I got a guy coming on with some medical issues that was forced out of an agency and is not being protected there, and it's just one thing after another, and the burden falls on the rank and file. Like, they have to worry about policies, they have to worry about statutes, they have to worry about their safety, they have to worry about their home life, they have to worry about getting injured. Like, all these things fall on 19, 20, 21, 22, 3-year-old kids to come in and do that stuff. And they think the agency is a big family and has their back, and they don't find that out until it's too late. Yeah. And then bad things happen. And I will say it till the day I die. All the bad shit I saw in my career did not affect me as bad as what happened when the agency turned on me, and I found out the people that I thought were close to me, my friends, just shit all over me and didn't care. That was what broke my mental health. All the other stuff, I signed up for that, and it's not, I think about it, but it doesn't blow my mind. Like, I'm sure it blew your mind. I'm sure, we talked about in the first episode that how tight you were with the chief, and I think he's a godfather of one of your children, and you just never expected that to go the way it did.
Like that.
Yeah. Just and that's like that. Yeah. And that's what we need to talk about. That's what we need to hear. So PowerPoint.
Yeah, well, I'll just break through it. This is some of the things that I've highlighted.
Right, I'm gonna add it, and I'm gonna blow the screen up, and then you're gonna tell me as I when this. So this is one of his awards he's gotten.
Yeah, this is a sarcastic one. So he got this award last week, and it talks about it's for Survive First. Doug Monda does a really good thing with Survive First for mental wellness, but they provided this chief of Jello, and it says an appreciation for care and compassion, and which is complete bullshit.
You don't believe that?
If no one alone, there was zero care and compassion for me. But my PowerPoint goes into it a little bit, some other things. So you can, but that's my sarcasm.
All right, so we'll go to the next slide here, and you can explain these.
Yeah. So these are 3 text messages that I've been highlighting over and over and over. So the first one is it says, "Sorry, pissed over this shit across the street." So the chief has a sober living facility that's directly across the street from him. It's called an Oxford House. And this Oxford House is protected under the 1988 Fair Housing Act. And so by the Supreme Court. And so when they moved in and he found out what had happened, he immediately directed all of his special units to include patrol to go attack this house. And so they were stopping people from walking on the wrong side of the street, making arrests, like a marijuana arrest like this. And so he made a couple of, the police department made a couple of fentanyl drug dealer arrests and were able to charge him with murder. And he provided a statement that said something to this similar that we will continually attack our drug dealers while having sympathy and looking out for the addicts. But yet then he posts something like this where he says he's sorry, he's pissed off across the street, and he openly attacks them. He sent probation over to that house. He's every special unit we have was targeting that house. There were 185 police initiated calls for service to this house. 185, not calls for service in general, but police. Like, we initiate attacks on this house, and there are 3 others in the city that had one.
Are you telling me that all the other drug houses in the county or city didn't get the same attention?
No, and not this isn't even a drug house. This is a sober living facility.
But he's assuming that there's activity, but the one that he lives across the street from got a little more attention.
Yeah, there was no drug activity. All the investigations they did, all that stuff. I think they got 1 weed arrest from a guy walking down the street, and I believe this guy that was put on a stretcher fighting for his life, I think he had something in his pocket. But they did probation searches of this house. They did constantly, and there were no drug arrests. And so when I brought this to the council, Mayor Medina was like, "Oh yeah, we created a task force to save babies." This is an all-adult living facility, so I don't know where he got the babies from. But he's been violating people's rights since early last year, since like February, March, and I keep putting this up there, and how he says one thing to the media, all we care about are addicts and all this stuff. But yet, then he purposely targets them.
Targets a wellness house for recovering addicts.
Yes, that are protected under the Supreme Court. And it's funny, is our city manager or our city attorney told him, you can't do this. People get sued all the time for doing exactly what you're talking about doing, and it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Yeah. He's been over there in uniform with his gun on, berating these people, confronting them, and nothing is done.
Imagine if one of Joe Q new guy did that to his neighbor.
It'd be crazy.
Yeah, he'd be fine.
I had a murder living across the street from me. I didn't do this. I did surveillance on him, and when Tank came,
I'm sure there's a policy, right? Everybody has a policy for you can't get involved in stuff in your neighborhood.
Absolutely,
I'm sure you guys do too. Yeah, every agency has that standing policy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not. It's really right. And then when you direct units out there, and every officer has been at that house and is used any kind of force, he's putting them in liability. If any of these people ever said, "Hey, I'm being targeted," because hell, I'd go on the witness stand and say that. I've offered my services to anybody and say, if you have a problem with the Palm Police Department, you need to reach out to me because I probably have your answers. So it's just unfair. And you'll notice that all the text messages, you'll see two blue marks, which is me. And one of the things that he got on to me about towards the end was like, "You're not even participating in the text messages." I said, "Because I don't believe in them. I don't believe in this. This was a personal attack on your neighbor. That's all this was." And he even made a statement. Yeah, well, I'd love to buy that house for my kids because he has 2 adult children still living with him. And so that was one of the things I brought that up many times. The middle one is talking about, we had officers that were on medical and mental leave. And so during that time, there were some conversations about they were asking for like light duty statuses and stuff like that. And so you'll see one of the comments that is made is, "Does the chief need a driver?" And then the chief responds, "Yeah, but not any of these yahoos."
Talking about his guys. Yeah. Talking about
just
his people.
call them idiots, because that's what yahoos means. It means brutish idiots. And that's the way that this chief is. He doesn't care about his folks on the outside, and care and compassion, the very award he got. He doesn't give a shit about his people. I mean, he puts it in a text message and he hides it, and they hide these in their personal chat messages. They don't even do them on their public or private public phones, what they're required to, but they do it this way to avoid their public records requests.
Yeah, my sheriff was using Signal.
What's that?
My sheriff was using Signal to get around that. They sent the disappearing messages, and he did all his business from Signal.
Yeah, and and it's crazy.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares, man.
No, they don't. It's so bad.
And the last one, the deputy chief, I guess he saw some kids starting a fire on a canal or whatever, and he mentions it in a text message, and the chief's like, "That's why you need to buy a pellet rifle and pop them one by one." These were small children out there doing stupid ass shit, and here's a chief of police telling his deputy chief to shoot them one by one. And to me, as I thought, man, this is disgusting. It's appalling that your chief of police is going to go out there and talk about shooting children, because, and this isn't, I mean, this is hate speech. If this were done in a school, that school would be locked down, they'd be arrested. Hell, if somebody, member of the public had threatened to shoot children, this would be a big deal.
This is one of those things where people will say it's a joke, and even if he is joking, let's play devil's advocate. Johnny Q, new guy, gets that going across his body camera, texting his zone partner or something like that. It's not gonna be a joke when one of the rank and file guys does it. It's gonna be a problem. But the chief gets away with it. He can chalk it up to a joke. Oh, but go make a joke like that as a 6-month cop or a year cop, or have that go across your body cam in a text message. I mean, the fucking state attorney's going to get involved. Everybody's going to get involved. Like, oh, this guy's advocating for violence. And maybe they may brush it if he's one of the good guys, if he's one of the team players. If it's not, then they would use that same message against somebody they were trying to get rid of and call him a advocate for violence and whatever they wanted to make up. So you have to be a little more professional. I would agree, as a chief of police, to not be talking like that.
100%, it's a joke.
Right.
Still,
you're right.
You're in a position. You're in a position you can't make those jokes, man.
Nope.
Let's see what I got next. I forgot. Okay, so this is from a city employee that reached out to me, and this is what they said. And I put these in there because I got tired. I think they got tired of hearing my words, so I wanted to start using other people's words. And this one, it was, I can just imagine the atmosphere is created. We shared a wall once. I heard the berated conversations and beratings people got from Mario. He's a frustrated bully. And I thought, well, that's exactly what I've been saying for a year. That's exactly what he is. He's just a bully. And if you don't sway to his side of the world, or you oppose him, that's the Mario Agello that you get. And it's sad. And this is why people have lined up on, because they don't want to be a part of this. Yeah. I think the next one's going to be about the same thing.
Let me look. All right, next one.
Yep. So same thing. And this one I thought was ironic because it talked about the good old boy system, which is a culture. That's what I've been talking about. It's about a SWAT culture. You either participate or you get shut out. And that's the truth. I'm talking about how he always had an air of arrogance. And he said that I often hear him yell at his people when he was a sergeant. It made me uptight. I can only imagine how he felt. And then they go on to say, it breaks my heart to know that good people are being treated badly. For those that once camaraderie, there's angst, and this just shouldn't be. So it just these are other people saying the exact same thing I've said. Mm-hmm. The next one's going to get a little good. Oh, this is just an officer recently retired. Basically said their commentary, basically saying it was too triggering for them to finish. And I assume that's because they dealt with the very same things. And they said that they're basically willing to fly back and help me out on my behalf, which quite honestly, I don't think it would do any good anymore. I think our council has come to a realization they don't give a shit, quite honestly. Yeah. But yeah, so and so this one here is a little bit of a struggle for me to put on. So Mario had a tragic event had a tragic event, but during the investigation, this is how he treated Melbourne officers, not our officers. This is how he treated officers from another jurisdiction. So this is a lieutenant who wrote a supplement. And you know how often a lieutenant writes a supplement?
Not very often.
Never, right? Never. But this lieutenant felt so concerned about his actions, and he wanted to protect his folks because he knows that Mario is vindictive and will go after people. So he put this in writing in a death investigation report simply to protect his folks. But he uses the same words that I've been using for a year. He calls him agitated, verbally aggressive, noticeably distraught. He began questioning the police investigation on scene. He identified himself as the deputy chief of Palm Bay. So he uses his authority right off the bat. I'm the deputy chief of Palm Bay.
Yeah.
And then he said, make comments about the differences in how agencies would run their investigation. talks about how Mario's continuing level of frustration throughout the thing. And what kills me is I don't even know why he's on scene. If this is a homicide scene, why are you even in the
again, if I'm Johnny New Guy or Johnny Cop and I start going to another agency scene and throwing my weight around, you're fucked. You're fucked. That same chief is going to tell you that you're out of line, you're insubordinate, you tampered with evidence, you tampered with the scene, and they're gonna have about fucking 9 allegations against you for some type of internal affairs investigation. It's just, you can't do that.
Absolutely. And he goes on. Then he starts yelling at Sergeant Detalius, who's on scene. This is a road sergeant who just happens to be on scene, and our chief is just screaming at him. And when the lieutenant walks away to handle another business, he then has to go back because Chief of Jello is screaming back at Detalius, questioning his level of tenure. So I can only imagine he's degrading this guy now, like, oh, how long you been doing this job? And you can only imagine. But then he starts making vague threats to this sergeant. Vague threats. And I don't know what those threats are, but they were good enough that this lieutenant wrote a supplement about them.
Should grab that body camera, man. See body worn camera. We should probably get that.
Oh, I was told I need to get that.
Honestly. Yeah, that would be a good one. You know,
crazy.
I know somebody who will publish it for you.
You?
I'll put it right the fuck out there, man.
I'll get it. But then he's again vague threats, and then the lieutenant had to intervene again, and Mario was still expressing his displeasure at the speed of the investigation and now how they were keeping the parents away from the child. And again, I understand this was a tragic event, but I've been doing this job for 30 years, and I've been on many scenes of tragic events. I've never had a parent on scene or anybody on scene threatening officers or anything like that. One, they wouldn't have been on the scene; they would have been outside the scene. And so, but I've never had this happen to me. And then he does what he does. He starts calling Melbourne's command staff, trying to get those guys in trouble, right? Trying to impose his will and his authority. And he's expressing his frustration with them. And finally, because of the continuing escalation and the behavior of interference, he uses the word interference. And again, this is a death investigation, and then potentially creating an issue that would impede the investigation. They finally let the I don't want to say the suspect, but the person most involved, they let him walk away, which you would never do, just to get Mario away from the scene, just so they could do their job.
Sounds like obstruction of justice, almost.
It does sound
or resisting. Like
it sounds like a lot, right?
If you're at a crime scene for anything, even a minor scene, like a burglary, and some dude, now they got the halo law, some dude comes up raising hell at your crime scene, you're going to give him a couple opportunities to get away, and he continues. That guy's getting hooked.
Yeah,
no doubt. He's going out of there. So that's wild. All
so
right, next one.
Yeah, I think they're just going to be the small little snippets of what I just talked about.
Oh, okay. I'll just breeze through them.
Yeah, I think that's just going to be it. Just the different things. Yep. I have to slow it down for our counsel so they can see it word for word. Sometimes
you're not the brightest.
But you know what's ironic is they didn't show this PowerPoint yesterday. When I was up there speaking, they went right to the end. You'll see when he goes to do the right thing. That's the only. So for those that were viewing, this is the only thing they saw. They didn't get to see my PowerPoint. And and I'm not a conspiracy theorist of yet, but which is crazy, right? When this investigation ended, the detectives were hard felt that there was some foul play involved in this one.
In that case, you're talking about.
Yes, this case. One of the medical examiners in this case happened to be a former Palm police officer who was a part of the decision making to say it was undetermined. Shortly thereafter, Mario hires that person back to our agency, even though he retired, cashed in on his retirement money and all that. We hired him back to the agency, paid him the fullest amount we could. We got with HR to redo his retirement so he could pick his retirement back up.
Strange.
He stays with us for a year, and now he's with FDLE.
Strange.
Yeah, which is why I don't go to FDLE right now.
I heard bad things about them up there.
FDLE.
When I talked to Yusef, all that stuff he went through.
Yeah, when I had my conversations in Tallahassee, I specifically asked them to keep the Orlando office out of it, because that's the office that
you guys covered by Orlando.
Yeah, it covers us, and those are a lot of the guys. And I have nothing bad with the guys, but I was there when they investigated a lot of those shootings that I'm concerned about. They were there when they were there for not for this one, but when a couple of our guys got arrested for sexual assaults. I was there and familiar with some of those investigations. So quite honestly, I'm to the point where I just want to protect myself as much as anything else. And
it gets scary, man. You start coming out with stuff like this, it definitely gets nerve-wracking, especially me. I'm already like a conspiracy theorist, and it's getting worse as I hear all these stories from people. And I definitely have that worry, man. When you start putting people's business out there, the bad business that they do, God knows, if Epstein can end up dead in prison, I mean, shit can happen to anybody.
3 of them now.
Yeah, his victim that said she would never kill herself ended up dead.
Yep. It's crazy. So I still get people still don't talk to me. I still get somebody called me up the other day and were like, "Yeah, Mario's old coordinator, his best friend, basically told him that I just went crazy, disgruntled." I still get blasted.
Yep. That's what they do. That's what they do. It's such a wild ride and I don't know that it happened. I don't know. I've never been in the corporate world. I don't know if it happens like that or what goes on there. But in this field, if you begin to speak out against the building, that's what happens. You're crazy. You're disgruntled. You're a piece of shit. You have mental health issues. You're a bad guy. And then they find, like I said, if any cop did what he did at that scene, they'd probably get arrested, surely in IA and some discipline. But then they do that wild stuff, and it's okay. And they take one little thing that you do, and I've seen it happen to me. They just blow it up, and then you can't get out of the crosshairs at that point. You just, everything you do, everything that happens at that point is look at he did it again. Look at he did again. Look at he did again. And you got, like I got the sheriff having affairs, just blowing the building apart. All kind of wild shit this guy's doing, and he's running around acting crazy and anything. When I tell the story about him, people are gonna lose their mind. The stuff I know about that guy, it's actually worse than what that guy just did. But yeah, it is. But they just push it on everybody else, and because they're higher ranked and they're administrators and chiefs, and everybody puts more value into what they say because the public doesn't understand the building. They think it's all great. Everybody gets along. And then if you're outspoken like you are, they think you're the problem because nobody else does it, because they can't, because they'll get fired or run out and lose their retirement or lose their pension or don't have a job. So it's just a vicious cycle of cops getting screwed. And I'm so glad that you've been able to bring this out to everybody.
So one thing that I didn't get into, so about 6 months after this investigation, we sponsored a leadership training over at FIT, and Chief Agello was supposed to do the opening words because he was the sponsoring agency. And so he gets into an elevator, and then a guy steps into the elevator, and the guy's facing outward, and all of a sudden he hears into his ear, he hears this whisper. Do you know who I am? Because I remember who the fuck you are.
Ooh.
And that was Chief Agello talking to Sergeant Tatiles, the same one he threw vague threats at during that investigation.
Beautiful.
On an elevator, man. And this sergeant was like, and initially he had no clue who this dude was whispering in his ear. And so they got into a confrontation. And this is the chief of police threatening a sergeant from another agency. Yeah. And so Chief Agello's own officers had to separate the two. And so this sergeant goes and files a complaint. He was like, this is insane that this chief can just do things like this. And so he files a complaint with Suzanne Sherman, the same one that took my complaint, went, took his complaint, went,
never happened.
And legally didn't do anything about it. And then not only that, then Chief Agello starts calling the Melbourne chief, trying to get this sergeant disciplined because he filed a complaint on him. Like, nobody has a right to file a complaint on a chief of police in this county. And he was adamant. And he was so irritated that Chief Gillespie would not open up a complaint. And I found it ironic when it was all said and done that Sergeant Dalius was actually honored the Supervisor of the Year that year for
he's got some fucking chief up his ass trying to threaten him, and he's actually there. It's good. I'm glad his agency protected him. It sounds like they got a decent guy over there.
Yeah, so it's
that's tough to do. That's tough to do. Is, you know, I'm glad they took his word and listened, because that could be, you know, that guy. There's another opportunity. Chief trying to throw his weight around and get somebody in trouble. What, a year later, years later?
And that guy told me, he said, if that had been my chief, he would have been terminated. And I agree. If you're going to go around threatening sergeants in your own county, I don't understand how a chief survives this.
Why do you think he does? Why do you think he does?
Honestly, I think he has something on our council. I think he must have something on our council. I don't know, because there's no reason for them to protect this. They're protecting one person over 140,000 people. They're protecting one person over 900 city employees. And he's bashed them. He's bashed firefighters. He's bashed other city department heads. He's bashed everybody. He's bashed police officers. He's bashed civilians. And then, you know, he's protecting them over the other 300 police officers. He's putting them in positions that they're going to be held liable. He's putting them in positions when you fail to hold your people accountable, and then they do something so stupid that they can't come back from. That's on you. When you tase a man off of a moving motorcycle, and you keep that guy on the job, and then he turns around and he tases somebody over the top of a fence line that breaks their neck and is paralyzed, that's negligent retention, man. You are going to pay for that. You're going to pay for that. And eventually,
doesn't sound like it.
well, that's Ben Crump is going to make them pay for it. I'll tell you that right. So Ben Crump is going to make them pay for it. But eventually, one of these guys is going to kill somebody, and they're going to go to prison. And it's because we haven't changed our tactics. We haven't changed our mentality. We haven't changed anything. We have guys now that have probably killed, I think, 3 people in the last 4 years. And that's what's sad, is that this guy can do whatever he wants, but he's not the one that's going to pay for it. It's somebody around him that's going to pay for it. And because when you create a culture that allows stupidity that you don't put in check, this is what happens. And this is the only reason. I'll be honest, Mike. I'm fucking tired, man. I'm tired. I'm beat. I've been fighting this out. I don't sleep. My jaw's hurt. I just want out of this game, but I can't in good conscience do it until there is change.
And I'm glad you're doing it. I'm glad you're doing it.
I made a promise to Chief Agello that day that he fucking accosted me, and I said, "You're not going to do this to me, man.
Good.
You're not going to do this to me." And no matter how much it hurts, and man, I've been miserable for the last fucking week. But you know what? It's small times like this. I got another broadcast tonight. I'm doing one tonight for Brevard News. I have a couple media outlets. I would love to get on any podcast that you can put me in the right direction.
Yeah, we'll get you. We got some other ones. I think you still be a good guest for Anti-Hero, and I think it'd be better, not the live show. I think you're better off doing one of their regular episodes where it's more like this.
Yeah.
It's a little bigger platform. It's the ongoing problem in law enforcement, and it takes a guy like you finally that says, I'm making a promise, no matter how bad this hurts, no matter how hard this is, to do the right thing. Because normally guys like you just go away, and then they do it to another guy, then they do it to another guy, and nobody ever bucks back against the government. And I'm glad you're doing it. I think that's why it's the most viewed episode. I mean, honestly, it's counterculture. It's not what normally happens. And, we can all sit here and talk war stories and, we did a search warrant, we arrested this guy, we pitted that guy. That's normal. This is the counterculture of, you have a man that got fucked and he's finally speaking up and telling his side of it. And I'm so happy you're doing it. I really am. And I will help you. You know it. I will help you as anything you need to continue this mission.
Yeah. And I think that, and it's not about me, but I also bring a resume to the game, right? I mean, I'm not. Yep. I mean, I was a deputy chief. I went to the FBI National Academy, 3% of law enforcement. So I'm not just, they try to paint me out to be some disgruntled guy. No, man, I've been fighting this fight for 25 years since the Marine Corps. So for them to think that I'm just going to walk away, it's not going to happen, man. There's going to be a ton of collateral damage, and that's been my biggest fear. Is that I believe that there will be collateral damage. I believe potentially officers can go to prison if I don't be quiet. And I've let that known that, you know, I'm only asking for the chief to do the right thing, city council to do the right thing, and I'll walk away. But if people, you know, because once I go into some of these shootings that just weren't legit, they're not good shootings. I just think that if they get reopened, I think officers are going to be in trouble. And I don't want that. I truly do not. I love and I care about our officers. I don't love and care about the leadership. But when leadership fails to do the right thing, it puts people in jeopardy. And that's my fear. And that's why sometimes I do try to hold back. But that's how it is, man.
Yeah.
I'm at a loss, and I'm willing. But I want to do the right thing for not only Palm Bay, but for law enforcement in general.
Good. Well, I appreciate you coming back on. Like I said, it's an open door. You have any updates, we'll continue to update the story. I think this is going to be a good thing to, because it's obviously well received and well looked at episode, and people I'm sure are wondering what's going on. You're continuing the good fight. You're continuing to go after them. You're not going to let this go away, and I think that's very noble of you, and I'm happy that you're not giving up. So any closing statement? You said a lot of stuff, but I'll let you finish it, man. If you want to close it out, anything you want to tell anybody, anything you want to say, anything coming up that they should know about?
No, I would just say, I know it's tough. You know, a lot of people reach out to me, but they're so afraid because of retaliation. And I get it, man. I was the deputy chief and they wiped me off the board. So I get it. So I just think that, you know, you got to do the small things, even if it's just letters, anonymous letters, whatever it is. Talk to a council person or whatever you feel is right. But if you sit there in silence, man, it's only gonna destroy you as a person. And so I think at one point you have to make decisions. There's life after law enforcement. If I haven't learned one thing, Mike, there is life after law enforcement. My blood pressure yesterday was 110/72. Before, when I was in law enforcement, I was in the 140s over who the fuck knows.
Yeah, it's a rough job.
I check my pulse
when it's going well.
to make sure. Yeah, I mean, there's life after law enforcement.
Yep.
There's so many jobs out there.
There are. I mean, it's a world. So I appreciate it. Anybody has a story similar, copvilleog@gmail.com. My Instagram is copvilleog. I will keep you confidential. I will listen to your story. If you want to publish it, we'll publish it. If you don't want to publish it, we don't have to. But I advocate for people to speak up when they're done wrong and to not allow the government and the building to continue to deteriorate our mental health and make what I consider the hardest job on earth even harder. So do what Lance did. Come forward, stick up for what's right, and we will get your story out there. We can. Lance, I appreciate it so much for coming back on.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right.
I'm the only white face in this area. You don't belong here. Stop, I'll shoot you in the back.